coming soon. So yeah, it's always a new journey, right?
It is, man, every day, every day. So let's give it a couple minutes before we officially get started, only because we typically have somewhere between 20 and 30 people. So right now we have 6. We do go Facebook Live also. So we have a different audience there. And then I put these on my YouTube channel primarily for me, so I can go back and watch and get re-inspired.
Well, I guess it's a good thing I did my hair today then, huh?
You look beautiful. You got you. I've been so blessed with all the people who have agreed to come on here, because I've asked people that when they, for me, this is going to sound weird. I don't even know if I'll articulate this correctly, but everybody I've asked to come on, they have the kind of energy that when they enter a room, the entire vibration of the room changes, and you do that.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for that. I think, and I owe so many people for, you know, showing and being the example of what that looks like.
Yeah.
One in particular, she just warms my heart every time I see her soul. And so that's important to me, right? With grace,
Yep.
grace and with mercy.
2 very important words.
Yes, it is, my friend. You look delicious though. I, it's almost
That's
you
the
have.
first time I've ever heard that. All right. There's been so many blessings of having this, pause. And I got really serious. One of the questions I sent you, I had to get really serious about a month into this about taking care of me.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that was going to look like. But my gosh, we all are facing things that we probably faced before, but not in this succession, right? And so much, just so much. So self-care, I keep coaching people that you probably have built better self-care habits in this time. Hopefully you have, than ever. And when we get back to whatever normalization we get back to, don't lose those habits.
It's so interesting that you say that, because for me, I would say that's been the opposite, because I've been laser focused on those who matter most to me. And it is very important to create that balance, right? That work-life balance. So 3 months of being very, very intentional around motivating people, and really personal conversations that they probably wouldn't say out loud to a public, and yet they have to have someone, something to allow that release. And so I've taken ownership with that. I've taken extreme ownership, in fact, of having those private conversations that give people permission to just tell me how they feel.
Yeah. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on here. So thank you. And of course, I know who you are, but now people are still logging in. But go ahead and tell us who you are, where you are. That's really important. I always miss that. And what roles that professionally you have.
Wow. Well, the simplest form of who I am is my name is Regina Polk, and I am a mother of 2. I think what I'm doing is choosing to use the things that are most important to me. So, a mother of 2, I am a woman of God. I believe in faith and spirituality. I also think that the universe speaks to us every single day. So I challenge and I confront some things that might be not something that I internally agree to, and yet I'm always coming from curiosity. I have spent 25 plus years in Atlanta. I was a productivity coach in the Atlanta Buckhead office for a few years. And then I had the opportunity to meet Brenda Benson, and she and I, we have a special relationship. I think mine's and energy collide. And so we had this opportunity to work together in Valentine. So I was there for a couple of years, which led me into becoming a bowl coach. And that was a journey in itself. That's another show. Okay, Ashley.
All
And
right.
after that, I started last year, December, working at Keller Williams Preferred Property as one of this partnership with them. That would be Emmerich Peace and Pat Long. And that has been a true, I think, the navigation of it all. We don't know what's ahead of us. And I think for me, it was just perfect timing to be in a place where, I understand more than I investigate because I've lived it for so long. And so it's just been a great opportunity to transition in 2020. And then everything else happens. So we just adjust and adapt, right?
Yeah, I love that. I understand more than investigate. I would say I see that in you, and I've never heard those words put together that way, but I totally get that.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you don't investigate anymore, but I think you have such a confidence about who you have become at this point.
I have for certain, and I think that has a lot to do with my past and the bold experience when I first got back into real estate in 2014 and taken bold. You know, I've always been a person who has been, what would I say, one that understands that I am who I am and that I am a blessing to be in this space, right? And it is temporary. And so while I don't get the information, as we know, as the expiration date, I know that every single day could be that day.
Yeah,
And so what am I living my life on purpose for? What am I focusing on? That to me is so critical. And then I just push that out into the universe because I realize that I've been in places where people will say she'll never make it. And I never maintained that mindset. In fact, I was in a pretty dark place, and it wasn't mentally, it was financially. And it gave you scarcity mindset that you didn't think, wow, am I going to make it? How am I going to pay the bills for my family and things of that nature? And so being able to come and see where I am today versus where I was just a short few years ago in 2014 just gives people the evidence that anything is possible.
yeah. What made the change there? I mean, because that wasn't that long ago, 6 years ago, and I've been doing so much reflecting this week and going year by year, pretty much back. One of my transformative years was 2012. That really wasn't that long ago. As a percentage of my lifetime, it wasn't that long ago, and I'm a completely different person.
Yeah. I think for me, what really made the change is that I understood that I had to go to the bottom in order to live out my life as assigned, right? Had a great life, family, all of that. And so some people see things that happen to us as devastating and disastrous. And I also could take that position. I'm just always coming from curiosity. Why is this happening? If in fact I truly am a person that has faith, then I got to understand that things just are not going to happen to me that would be the demise of me and my spirit and my soul. In fact, it's going to be a reason to elevate my spirit and my soul.
Yeah. And what's the purpose? What purpose are we going to make out of it?
Absolutely.
Now, um, I, this will change going forward. I'm going to make a commitment. You are somebody I want to spend a lot more time with, and we've gotten a little bit of time over the last
Every
few
chance
years.
we could get, right? Every
Yeah,
chance we can get, we spend some time, if it's nothing else but an embracement, a little note of love, a hug, something special. It's my intention when I see you in the world that I make that happen.
yeah, and you do, and you do it very well, and you make people feel very special. Um, and at so we can say that we have many more good days than bad, right? And
Yeah,
yet we've likely, I know I've sat with you at least one time where we had some big challenges.
yeah,
So when the and I responded today to a Facebook post that who's better to bet on? There's nobody better in the world to bet on than yourself. And it occurred to me that while I believe that, I forget it sometimes.
mm,
And things creep in and I go, I'm not up for that challenge. I don't have the confidence in myself. The little ego sometimes gets me. I don't know if you ever experience that. And I thought with everything that we are being called to do in this lifetime, everything God's telling us we are here for, we have a responsibility to really listen to that. And sometimes it's terrifying. Uh, how do you step into those spaces? Because I know you're being called on a lot right now. How do you step into those spaces with full confidence that you're the person for it?
well, for me, I'll just go back to the time where the civil unrest started to show itself, right, at a high level.
Yeah.
And that was during the time of George Floyd. And at some point, I've always been a leader. I mean, no matter what the
You
degree.
can't help it.
And so as we started looking at that and people were really making the decision to have a voice, I agree that everybody has one. What and how you use it is so important. So while I'm not the person that's going in a massive crowd to understand that we would like to have change in this place we call the United States of America, and we saw the evidence from a global standpoint as well. I do understand that where I do possess power is in the places that I reside, right? The
Yeah.
places that I reside, that's at my home, that's in my business. Those are my business partners, those who represent in the business realm. And so I spend a lot of time contemplating. I think there's so much power around that time, whether you meditate or you think, what is it that I'm here to do? What is my purpose? And so I'm passionate about giving people understanding, information to understand, and choosing to be okay if they don't understand at that time, because none of us are perfect, right? So I have the responsibility of providing information that I know, and then you as the receiver can make a decision to do one of two things: accept or reject initially, because that's usually one of the two.
Right.
And at that point, I think it's just awareness. Awareness makes it a lot easier for people to then go back and say, okay, well, let me contemplate a little bit deeper on what that looks like. So my voice is in a place where it's constructive for me.
Yeah.
And I applaud everyone else who would make a decision to create their voice for themselves.
So, and you know, the energy that you have behind your being, I think in some ways we share it. You create a safe space, and you said understanding, and you also understand that change is a process, right?
It is.
It's not just, okay, here's what you need to know, and then tomorrow everything's completely different. So
Right.
walk me through, and this has not happened on one of these Zooms, but my dog is tearing the door up, so I'm going to go let him in. But walk me through um, how you do that, either individually or within an organization. How do you open that conversation and hold the space for people to actually, as Emmerich and I were saying on Wednesday, get woke?
Okay, so I love that question. And I'm just going to keep speaking while you go open the door for the baby. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the space, first, we have to acknowledge that it's uncomfortable. I mean, we teach in Bold all the time that we have to become comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so when we realize that and we can appreciate that it's okay, and we will get on the other side, because on the other side of being uncomfortable, well, lies success in all things. So this is just a specific category that we're talking about, right? And so I think that that gives people an idea that they can be okay with being just themselves and vulnerable. The vulnerability is so important because we all got egos, and we all have confirmation bias where we just know that what I know is what I believe, right? I mean, I'll give you an example. Nobody on earth can make candied yams the way my mother did. Nobody. That's my confirmation bias. The reality is, do I eat candied yams from someone else? The answer is yes. And the reason that I do is that I love candied yams. So you just have to be open to other perspectives, other ideas, and other positions. You know, not everybody's going to agree. We can all agree to that. What we can also agree to is that at some point, given enough information, people will make a decision to stay where they are or create some change in their thinking. And that's, I think for me, that's all that I believe my mission is about these days. It's just giving people the opportunity to find themselves brave enough to have a tough conversation.
So years ago, you just triggered me to a memory in me. Years ago, we were at a mastermind when I was still a team leader. Mark and Mary were leading it. And we were having a similar conversation to this. And I said, I get that. I mean, we're clear on what our purpose is, and we open those conversations and we hold the space and we provide the information. And sometimes people don't respond in the way we would wish. And so I asked Mark, and I'm going to ask you, how do you not stay attached to that outcome of seeing the change in somebody?
I think that I am always reminded that people are doing the best that they can at that time.
I get that. I got to tell you though, girl, sometimes I think that's their best is pretty crappy.
Well, it might be. I mean, listen, there are things I can and things I cannot control. So what am I focused on? What can I control? Can I control one element in terms of their thinking? Because nothing moves until that changes.
Right.
Nothing. So, I mean, I can be closed off and not want to hear it. And yet, the next time I hear something different. So, it's that continual effort to communicate something in a different way, all while saying the same thing.
Well, what I love about that, and I'm going to put this word in there, that what you just said demonstrates your extreme ownership of being the deliverer of a message in a way that it can be absorbed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
And that,
what's your educational background, Regina?
yeah, so I went to Talladega High School and didn't even think that I was going to be an individual who would graduate. I probably stayed in trouble more than I did anything else.
No, I don't
Yeah,
believe that.
surprisingly, yes. So, you know, I tell people, you don't know people until you get to know people. Like, I'm a living transformation. Now, I've always had the good in me, right? And you are a product of your environment. So while I was a good kid, I had people bullying me. At some point, I had to decide, am I going to continue to be bullied or if there's a solution to the bullying?
Yeah.
Ironically, I became a bully.
Interesting.
It is very interesting. And I didn't, of course, as I look at it as an adult, I can see that. And yet I was just in survival. I will parallel this to our conversation right here. The universe that we're in right now, we all have our perspective and we hear bullying. We don't necessarily feel the pain of bullying. We feel what people are saying on both sides of the spectrum. It's still bullying if it causes you to have fear.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so that's the story. I did end up going to the Ohio State. And I'm grateful for that because I didn't have financially strong parents. My father had passed away at the time. And thankfully, my cousin, who was much older, who is much older than I am, because my father was much older than my mom, she became my blessing. And I will tell you, without my parents, particularly my mother, and without my living angel mother, who is my first cousin, who is like my second mom, she came and saved me.
None of us succeeds alone.
That is truly the point.
Yeah. What'd you study?
Political science. I always knew that I just wanted to be this person at the White House. And now I think I probably would never want to do that ever. It's too much stress. I like this side so much better, so much better.
I've had that conversation so many times in the last several years about, if you really want to make a difference, get in politics. I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think that's where we can make the biggest difference,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello there. I see your face. Thank you so much. It's always good to see faces when we're on the
I know. I don't know why they get so shy, other than it's early in San Diego.
I get it. Listen, sometimes I said earlier, my hair is done. Sometimes it may not be done. So I got to rush and do a little something to it just to show face. And the reason I do that is because she says, who's this? Robert.
That's my broker. That's Robert.
My hair ain't did. Okay. I understand that too. I think that.
Oh, Judy Johns is here. I haven't seen Judy in a while. Sorry.
Hi, Judy. Hi, Judy. I think that why I intentionally work so hard to be present is because the power is in the presence, the
Isn't that true?
connection, right? The connection. So I get it. So thank you, Ryan, for showing me your face, and I can look over and find a vote of confidence when I'm in thought. So thank you so much for that.
All right, so let's go. And obviously, everybody who's here knows Emmerich because we're talking on a weekly basis, right?
Yep.
And your market center there and my market center are they're the anomalies. We're very diverse. And I think we all are becoming more aware of how not diverse real estate, let's just say real estate in general is. And I know for myself, I've had a lot of conversations that I never thought I would have an opportunity to have. I was going to say have to have, but I don't want to say that. Have the opportunity to have. And it's been interesting and at times terrifying. And yet I've had the constant thought, well, if not me, who? And I've got to imagine you feel that even stronger than I do. So what kind of conversations you said you're taking care of the people in your family and in your businesses? Kind of walk me through what that's looked like since George Floyd was murdered.
Well, we do have some conversations. I mean, it's a little bit different than in in a household that maybe haven't experienced those things, right? So we can talk the hard truth and not necessarily find ourselves on eggshells. I think in our world as realtors, that conversations that it becomes a little bit different because people truly are afraid to say anything right now, and that doesn't unlock the truest potential in us. So it's not until we get to a place where we can actually say something and not be judged by the opinion of it, right? Because we take in ownership. So I say the conversation would be different than it is, in fact, different in the market center that I'm at now, because as you know, we're 95+% African American in the market center. Conversely, I'm still licensed in my office at Atlanta Buckhead, and that conversation is totally different because there's a lot of fear and discovery. There's a lot of discovery. There, you can't blame anyone for saying, "Well, I don't know. I never knew that this would happen." What you can do is really push toward the truth around what that really looks like. Because in the surface, that's one thing. Behind the surface is another.
So okay, I and in some of the rather intense conversations I've had recently, I've had to translate the words coming out. So somebody says, "Well, I didn't know that existed," or "I didn't know it was still a problem," and I go, "I my translation of that is you were unaware."
Mhm.
Because knowing and unawareness are different. And for me, it sounds at times very, very narrow-minded to say, I didn't know this is a problem. I
Yeah.
think for me, I'm just translating going, our awareness has just grown of it, hopefully. So in um, one of the purposes of doing these conversations with Emmerich and having you on is so that people can leverage this. If
Yeah.
they're afraid to have the conversation in their own market center or on their own team, just tap in to the conversations that are being created around you. I know for the first week after George was murdered, I didn't know what to do. And I had a fear of doing the wrong thing, and of offending because of my own level of ignorance. And I just had to get past that and go, we're not going to do this perfect. There's not a perfect way to have these conversations.
Right. What I have found is that people are afraid of offending either way,
Yeah, for sure.
right?
I actually wasn't afraid of offending my white friends at all.
Well, there are many, and I'll give you the evidence, right? We could be in a conversation on the topic and it'd be similar, and then my phone start to blow up because they really would like to have a conversation. They just don't want to offend their white counterparts. And so then you say, okay, well, we got to get to the courage because you care enough to reach out. Because if you didn't, you wouldn't. And I think sometimes what gets missed is that your voice with my voice creates a different voice. People see things and they hear things from their own perspective.
Yeah.
Imagine me going having a conversation to someone who can't even relate to who I am, and that's just the world. There is places where people have not, whether choice or not, had any interaction with people of color. And so what would that look like to be able to now all of a sudden have an open conversation? So you do have to meet people where they are, and you have to encourage people to be different than they are.
Yes, and hold that safe space for them. I'm sure I'm going to assume this last several weeks, you've probably had a lot of the phone calls that my entire life in Keller Williams I've gotten, which is, you're the only gay person we know. Can you help me with this issue? And
Yeah.
I probably get 10 of those calls a month still from people across the country. I'm guessing you've had a lot of those type of reach outs.
I have some reach outs. For me though is this, um, help me understand who you are, not so much um, what it is. And the reason I say that is because to many people, I represent Black America. I'm a portion of Black America. And so until you see the full gamut of Black America, maybe you detach your thinking because you have a friend by the name of Regina Polk, and you could never see her being in a situation where her neck is being pressed down to death. And then when I say to you, Regina Polk has great fear because she is a Black American, that takes people by breath, because I can't imagine you would find yourself in any kind of trouble. The point is, it's just by the essence of my skin causes that opportunity. So my greatest desire is that if we could all look at the human race, and I know I'm an overly optimistic person, as human, no one greater than the other, I think that that will get us to a place that we all see things differently. Because if you looked at me and you looked at my brother, you would say, okay, that is scary. That's comfortable. In our
What do you
world,
mean? What do you mean by that?
yeah, because my brother has aggressive features and he's dark, and you know he is the representation of what people who have understanding around Black people to be stupid, dumb, um, anything that's derogatory,
All the stereotypes.
all the stereotypical things, right? Without having a conversation, if you were just looking at him, long hair, beard, that sort of deal, that the world says, well, that's not normal. He's very normal. In fact, he's my brother and he's 10 times smarter than I am. So I think until we get comfortable just understanding who people are, I think that that's our greatest opportunity right now. And I see the door opening, um, even with Gary's conversation, right?
Yeah.
And I don't take that lightly. I don't take it lightly because Gary said it. And I think we have to hold the people accountable to it if that's truly what they believe as well. To get behind the initiative because this is our company. And so I'm most passionate about that. I'm most passionate to understand and make certain that people are still hearing his message, and ask ourselves, how can we make that happen?
Well,
Whatever it is.
and again, this week, many conversations I've had to say the best thing we can all do right now is be curious and ask questions and listen.
Yeah.
Because until we do understand the other human being's perspective, we're operating on our own assumption of what that is. And that's why we say, well, we didn't know it was a problem still. I've got to listen and really do my best to understand what another human being's life experience has been. It made me tear up. I hate that you have to walk around and be afraid.
Yeah. I mean, I have a 28-year-old young man, and I say this all the time. Like, he's got the charisma of his mother.
Wait. How old are you?
Yeah, don't worry about it. I He's 28. My daughter's 30. And I
Girl, you look good.
You know, I tell you, it's all the sugar that I eat. Okay, it's all the sugar that I eat. Brian, you know what I mean, right? It's the sugar that I eat. Listen, at the end of the day, this is real talk. And do I have permission to talk real
Absolutely.
right now? Okay, my son is 28. He lives in Washington, the state of Washington. Um, he's phenomenal. He is. Weekly, he and I have a conversation because there is not one or the other. There's just the one when it comes down to men. And so I think women sometimes we can have more grace, and yet we still are one race. And I think that's the issue of where we can be in a divide. That you know uh, they can look at him and say, okay, he's a threat. He's got structure. He's built. He's tall, and so being confronted um, in a situation could cause someone automatically to be intimidated. And I'm always having to remind my son to be careful. And as much as I love people, that's painful. That's painful to have to
Well,
say to my son, be careful when you go out and you're driving. Be careful when you're walking. I'm not saying the trip and fall. I'm saying be careful not to find yourself in a situation that I never get to see you again.
so I'm hearing that a little bit differently this morning coming out of your mouth. And Emmerich and I have talked a lot about this, but I had a rough night last night. I had a lot of anger. I walked my property and I had a lot of physical outlay of anger.
Yeah,
And what I heard you just say is not just be careful, but be controlled to an extent. If we're human and we have, if I get pulled over and I'm pissed off, I can go back at the cop a little bit and not fear that I'm going to get killed.
naturally.
You can't.
No, never, never.
Yeah.
Even me, even me.
There's just such a level of unfairness to me in that I had not felt until today because of my anger issues last night. But I'm pretty self-controlled most of the time, and yet I can't even imagine.
I think the message that people are sharing right now is that um, how it's been perpetuated in the learning and training environment. I mean, I don't speak ill on any officer. I just speak what I'm aware of. And I will tell you that for years, I am reminded. In fact, the other day I was looking at something, and I've been reading a lot because a lot is expected for me to know. And I think the sad truth is that because we really didn't get the education of what America is, really, I mean, the conglomerate of what America is, then we don't really understand Black history. And so for me, I've been reading a lot, and the other day I read something that really jarred my thoughts around why people don't understand and why people do feel the way they feel. For example, I'm looking at 1965 and I'm thinking, geez, this looks like 2020. 1965 mirroring 2020 in so many ways when it comes down to race relations.
Yep.
And I am, which many people don't know. Ricky Bobby is my cousin. I say that facetiously, right? Because he was the star of Talladega Nights, and that's where I'm from. So imagine so many things that's going on. The Confederacy flag that's being removed from the NASCAR. That rings whole to me because I grew up going to that NASCAR performing every year in the opening ceremony as being in the band. And so seeing things, I do believe that sometimes we get, what's the word? Not necessarily conditioned. I'll go there though, okay? Conditioned by the environment. So while year after year after year after year growing up, seeing the Confederate flag, well, people would say, well, that's just the way it is. if you would hear from my perspective, it would be different because it represents something different.
When did
And
you become aware of that though?
early, early, early on as a kid, right? Because I had a mother that was born in 1935. 1935, she was picking cotton. So people would say that is just the way it is.
It's not that long ago. It is still in that influences you. Mm.
It's, yeah, it has. It has a tremendous amount of influence. And I think the thing is, when we are aware, we get to make our own choices. And I'm not here to convince you to believe the way I believe. I'm not here to convince you to respond the way I respond. My purpose is to offer you some awareness by way of someone you believe is a reasonable human being. And then
But
you
a
get to,
beautiful human being. You got a beautiful soul, girl. Um, so what's been some of the most challenging, and we can go even just to COVID and when we all got locked down, what have been some of the biggest challenges you've encountered this last 3-4 months?
I think being available, being available to hear and to see, where maybe I would be running fast, had no choice except to be present. So that's been a big challenge. What am I saying? The news, the troubles, the inside, the itch to get outside, the mask, the not, the no mask, right? And how do you just keep it in perspective for the good? And we all, I mean, it's a lot to take in. And
I
so how
wrote last night, a mutual friend of ours asked me, what is your new normal like now? And I said, my new normal is being uncertain in every moment. And I think that's getting comfortable being uncomfortable, getting comfortable being uncertain, because there is no certain, and people come to us for the answers.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we owe it to the people who are coming to us with the answers. I don't think, though, that we are the people that have to provide the answer without investigation. Right.
Yeah. And I actually think for a lot of this, we're all going to find the answers together. It's the being curious and investigating together. We
Yeah,
need each other more now than ever, because I need to understand your perspective as much as I can. Um, just to get through where we are as a universe right now.
that's true.
So my coach hat goes on, dear. So you said balance has been a challenge. I was bragging, I guess, about how good my self-care has been, and you haven't focused on that.
There have been pockets of times where I have, right, after eating like 7 slices of pizza. No, just joking. Not being your perfect health though, and walking out. Do I go walk? Do I not go walk? All these things. And I live in a building where I had
Well, where are you now? Because you're split between the two. So literally,
yeah,
where are you right now?
Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Yeah. And so being able to have the resources that I didn't have to go out to exercise. The only thing is that the exercise was closed. So then I had to be creative on just keeping my mental space together. I always say, well, I did get COVID 15, maybe 12, maybe somewhere in there. I just stopped getting on the scale at some point. And then I remember saying goodbye like this on a Zoom, and I saw the like flab going bloop, 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 and I was like, okay, time's up. That's it. I got to start doing something else. So whatever it is that causes you to take another action, for me, that day was another action. So I said, okay, 3 days a week, I'm going to be at least in front of my tube that says, okay, bend over, stretch yourself, something. And so okay. So the other thing that I did that was very much self-care, especially when Zoom started to come out, is that I'm a believer in Zen, right? I gotta have this scent coming through. I gotta have the candles. I gotta have the shade and all of this happening. So 3 times a day, I would have a spa moment. That was in the beginning. I was like, okay, this is overwhelming. Okay, you feel overwhelmed? Okay, go relax. And so I would just immediately go and make this nice bubble bath, have candles, and I would put myself in that place. So that was my best version of self-care then.
I love that. So when are you going to get back to it?
Well, I don't know that is the important thing now. I think for me now is sunlight. So I think you have to adjust to what is important to you.
Yeah.
Because I could be in here all day. And so now Notion, I wake up in the morning, I do my morning practice, and then I go outside and I sit on the bench and I just take it in, right? I may have a cup of tea, I may have a cup of coffee. I am on a rooftop as well. So I go out and get sun in the middle of the day, and that rejuvenates me. I think whatever it is, you just got to find it. Because Gary tells us to pick a direction if we don't know what it actually is for us at that time, right? So
Right.
I pick a direction and go there.
All right. So what advice as leaders in this time, what advice would you give us?
Um, to listen, to listen intently, right? So oftentimes we can be in conversation, and when we hear something that we reject, we stop listening. And I think that maybe on the other side of the full effort of listening, that you have a different perspective, or you can interrogate something differently. Like, what if? Okay, example. If for any reason the doors have to open, how do you open them? Instead of saying, well, the doors are not going to open, the doors can open. The question is, how? That's in so many aspects, right? So it can be in your life, it can be in your opportunities, especially now, because the world is doing something different digitally, you know. So how do you take more listings in a digital world? Well, we could say, I can't because I can't go anywhere. Or we can say, how can I take more listings? And let the universe give you information. And I like to say it's the universe, because there's this serious vibration, and we can feel it. In fact, we can feel the vibration from one another. That's why I'm always looking over here at the right hand corner, my right hand corner, at Brian, because I can just, when he smiles, as he's doing now, it gives me just a little bit more energy to push through what might be uncomfortable.
And that's when I said we need each other. That I'm tapping into energy constantly.
Yep.
Right. All right. So this is another question I sent you. Have you, and I assumed you did, and I shouldn't have assumed, have you learned anything about yourself that you weren't completely aware of prior to Corona?
I've learned a couple of things. One of which is I do like the outside. Like naturally, I give so much when I'm in the world. I expend so much energy that I'm an introvert when I get home, and that's just to fill my cup so I can go and do it all over again. And at first, I thought, this is going to be a breeze. I can do this. I can do this. I do this anyway. I can go the whole weekend and not even go out. I don't think so as much anymore. I think that now I can appreciate the privilege of being able to, one, from health, and one, from the space of it's available. So, how do I keep my health together? By going outside and taking in the energy of life.
Okay.
Well, that's the biggest thing, I can tell you that, you know. And um, I think the other thing is understanding my responsibility in both places, because even in our company, there's a small representation of African American women and men, for that matter, right? And so, who who can I represent so that we can offer more information around why we are the way we are and what we can do to create change. And then on the other side, I have a vote of confidence that I am a good person. And so the words that come out of my mouth is of good judgment. And so it does open the door for people to think differently.
Do you ever have the moment of pause, of kind of observing everything, right? And going, I can't believe this is happening. Somebody needs to do something. And then there's a moment of pause. And for me, and then it's, that somebody is me. Do you have that?
Specifically, so yes, in this case. So when Bold Pivot had a shift, you know, I thought, well, what am I going to do? And I
I'm
don't mean
so
like,
glad you articulated it like that, because there was another word that I was thinking. Yeah.
when it had a shift, though, really and truly, it was it was so different. And I think that you have this passion, you lead with your passion, at least for me. When I'm passionate about something, man, I can get behind it 1000%. And I had that mental shift. And so then when we went virtual, I had there was another mental shift around it. And then we had the task force and the initiative from Gary's perspective of how we're going to create change in our market center. And I thought, I can get behind that. I can get behind that in a way that is with purpose and intention to help people see differently. Because I think most people have good inside of them. They just have to have an understanding of how to unlock that good and not be afraid of doing so.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I gave it all. I turned it in. I said, well, I shouldn't say I turned it in. I don't want that to be misunderstood, right? So my intention is to work really, really closely with our MAPS team and help us come up with some initiatives to fully understand how to coach our clients as well, through some sense of sensitivity, because we all have that. We all have a space that we're really sensitive about, and how do we work through that?
Yeah. That's a great place for you to hold. Very good. What do you plan on accomplishing this year since everything has shifted around? What are your goals for the rest of 2020, either personal or professional?
Yeah, well, personal is definitely to get those pounds off. I can tell you that now, right? So stair step or spin, something going on all of the time in my head.
Honey, it's got to go on in your body too.
Oh yeah, I know. That's the thing. So that's the thing that causes me not to do the things that I was doing before. And and getting an accountability partner too has been helpful. Called a friend, and we both shared the sentiment, and it's like, okay, let's make something happen. So we report out every day what our success is and things of that nature. So I truly believe in accountability. Professionally, I really think that it is an opportunity to help our company find a sense of diversity. Uh, and that is what Gary is looking for. So what is it? What role will I play in that sense of diversity? And how can we find people that would be in the same alignment with Gary's vision?
Okay. And thus far through this year, what have you found most rewarding? What's been the biggest or a few of the biggest blessings that have come out of all this?
Staying healthy, number one, because I feel like if I'm not healthy, how can I help anybody else? And two, that there's a renewed sense of what can we do in this world to make it a better place.
Awesome. So Peggy has two questions. Number one, what inspires you? And number two, what are you reading? Because you said you're reading a lot.
Yeah. So what inspires me is faith. And I mean that in so many ways. So what inspires me is when I hear or see someone that has a notion to lead with faith versus fear. I coach. I'm a coach. Inside of me is a coach. And so I have these conversations. It's like, well, Regina, would you stop coaching me? What do you want me to say then? Because I got nothing, I got nothing if it's not pouring into what I do every day. And so that's important to me. What am I reading? Currently, I am reading How to Be an Anti-Racist.
Great book.
Yeah, so that's by Ibram X. Kendi, and it is phenomenal. And I'm just staying in the structure of two things.
Can I ask, are you reading that or are you listening on Audible?
I'm doing both.
He is, I love his voice.
Yeah,
It
I do
is,
both.
it's intoxicating to me.
Yeah. And so we have a book club. That's one of the reasons that I'm currently in that book, because we do have a book club in leadership that says we're interested in just kind of breaking or dispelling some myths that we may have about what's going on around us and things of that nature. Most of my books though really are about self-help. How do I become a better person? I do a morning spiritual motivational with Sarah Young's Jesus Calling. I do that practically every single day to start my day. I do also have a prayer call that we intercede for those that may not be able to or know how to say a prayer that might help them move forward. And the book before, was I reading the book before? Wow, let me just look because I got tons of them in here. So if
Well,
that's
you look at that, and I scrolled back up, and thank you, Brian, for telling me to scroll back up. Because you look so incredible, I'm actually going to read this as it says. So Brian says, I want to put this out there. Is this considered systematic when someone says you look great and black don't crack?
so systematically, it is out of bounds, Brian. However, okay, because we do crack and we're no different, right? However, thank you for the I look great, and I think it really is about awareness. Another example is, can I touch your hair, right? Because while people are fascinated with certain things, it's different. Brian, I know you would never, I can tell by the conversation we've had thus far that you would never do anything intentionally, which is why we have the conversations.
And
Because
why we have to remain curious.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So true. Yeah. And I think that for me, I'm conscious of um, not offending. I offend, you know, unknowingly. I can offend. You've never offended someone and they say,
Oh, I see what you're saying. No. Yeah.
yeah.
I get what you're saying.
So knowingly, that's the way that looks. And now once you know, then
The way I say that a lot less articulately is I don't know a person who wakes up and says, I'm going to go be a jackass today.
correct.
But there are days when we all show up that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Now,
if I want somebody to give me grace on that, I've got to be willing to give it.
exactly. And I have a side of me that's like you. I just made personal choices to be a different person, right? So what am I saying? My mother was a sailor. She could give the best strong words out there, and it would be, whoo, you could feel it deep down in. I mean, it was coming from the Lord. And so now I'm like, I just, I like this version of me. I like this version of me much better, and still I remind people that it's still in me. Right. And so if you see me somewhere and I am passionate in a strong way, you cannot take away the person that I am. I'm passionate, and we all have. So that's what I see in protest. I know there's been so much conversation around, well, why is this happening? Why do people burn? And why do people behave this way? It happens in all of us in one version or another. And I don't know that one is greater than the other.
I 100% agree. If there would have been enough people on my property last night, I would have been burning something down. So Peggy asks, who would you like to have a conversation with? That's a great question.
Living or none?
You choose.
All right. So living, I would say the president.
I'm contemplating that one. Wow. What would you ask him, Regina?
How can we do something differently for the people of our nation? How can we bring our nation together in a climate that we're in now? I'm not saying it's a right or wrong. I'm saying that's what I would ask. And maybe there could be some change and just a discovery if we're both open to that change.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be transparent with you. The inside of me, when asked that question, was to say something else. To be authentically true, that's who I would have a conversation with. In the same way that we're having here, in the effort to offer some sense of moving forward and resolution to what's at hand.
I love that. And I mean, I'm having an internal visceral reaction because of my own biases, right? And it's not a negative reaction. It's just a, wow, that would be fascinating. And you saying that shines an even brighter light on how incredible you are. Because I think you actually could hold that space.
Well, we talked, and so it's the right timing of the space, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think conversations have to happen, and there are going to be difficult conversations, and I'm not one that's shy of difficult conversations.
I'm not either, but where I went was I also want to spend that time with people who I think are going to actually engage in the conversation.
Yeah.
And that's my bias.
Well,
You're at a place where you have more faith than I do. And I want to work towards that.
yeah, and I don't know too. I think responsibility, right? Because if the question was, who would you like to talk to? And I'm just saying, um, if I perceive that nobody's talking to him, then I have to take
You
responsibility
have to fill the space.
to
Yeah,
be
I
the
get that.
one, yeah, to say something, so that's it. If I could talk to someone that's not living and they talk back to me, I think it would be my mother, because she would remind me of what she instilled in me. So I'm a pit. Listen, I think I put myself in places where I am I'm intense. Right? Is that good? Like I can go there, right? I can roll with the best. And like I said, I like this side of me. So I have perfect
I
balance.
like the fact that you have both,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yep. And somebody just put in the chat box, can we see the other side of you? No, I'm just joking. I was like, okay, yes, we can, no, that was a joke. Okay. Nobody said that. It's important that
What they're
you,
saying is, can we bring her back? We want her more, honestly, is what they're saying.
wow. So I have a question to that, if it's okay. What is it more that I can do to help you? And is it okay? I don't know. This is your show. Around a little feedback, can we have some open dialogue around
Absolutely. What I found over the last 3 or 4 months is they don't ask much, but I would love for that.
Okay, so let me ask the question: is this space safe enough just to have some open dialogue around anything? Now, I'm not navigating you to anything. If you're receiving something that I've shared with you today, I'm just asking. Okay, super safe. Thank you so much. That we just I'm going to change my screen because all I've been looking at now predominantly is Ashley. So let's just do this.
We got lots of good people on here.
Hello, beautiful people. How are you? All right. So I'm going to invite you that can just unmute. And if there's anything that you would like to ask Regina anything. What would that be?
Maybe that's what you should do. Do an Ask Regina Zoom every week.
I like that. I just created something. Here we go. That's it. Stay tuned.
All right, Nikki.
Hi, Nikki.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Wonderful. So I am so impressed with you on so many different levels. And I think many times this, at least in the beginning, where our hesitation has been is in the delivery of the message. I commend you for being much calmer than I consider myself. And I'm wondering where your headspace is before you deliver that message so that what we're saying isn't coming from a place of anger or irresponsibility, because the way that you're able to maintain that control is pretty astronomical. Is there anything where you you stop and think for a minute or just take a breath? Or how is it that you're able to deliver your message so effectively?
It's a great question. Um, I'm constantly talking to a higher power, constantly. And I believe that you don't get anywhere. It's my personal belief, right? Going at the highest octave, screaming and demeaning. I don't see that. Uh, I do see and understand why people do it though, right? I do see when people are in the street, I completely understand that maybe the average American wouldn't understand. And it really is based on oppression in many cases, right? And this has no color line. If you feel like somebody is oppressing you, then you're probably going to come back out fighting as well. It's the mechanism that we use to protect ourselves. So for me, it's, do I get angry sometimes? Yes. When somebody is unjustly harmed, I do, because I care so much about people. I'm a lover of people. I get my energy from people. So that's why, and that's who I have that
Wait,
contact
I'm just curious. When's the last time you lost your cool?
every day. Every day. Like, I'm not perfect. Don't misunderstand me, right? I'm not perfect. When I see something that makes no sense to me, I get angry because I know that my first thought, I don't really get to control it. It's the natural environmental space that I live. What I do get to control is my second thought. And by knowing that, how am I looking at this? How can I look at this differently? That's,
I love that, controlling your second thought. And I put this in chat, and this is something that I recently experienced, which was kind of weird for me, is that I listen to a lot of rap. I listen to a lot of different music. I listen to a lot of Black comics. Ryan Davis is one of my favorite guys. And the N word comes up almost constantly. And I found that I routinely listened to it and it never really triggered me. And now it triggers me constantly. And I don't know how to feel about that. It's like all of a sudden, am I triggered because I'm aware? Is it okay to still like these guys? And I'm in a weird space with that. Wondering what your thoughts are on.
I think it's okay to like who you like, right? The music that you like. Oftentimes I have gotten, well, why do people of color use that terminology, right? It seems so demeaning. I think you have to know the history of it, though. You have to dig a little bit deeper in terms of the history. In fact, there are two distinct words that we equate to the same. The violence behind one and the reason behind the other creates a different thing that we've put in society. We've put them in the same boat, right? And so when you understand that there's some real things that's happened over life, even down to the 13th Amendment, that was really, really protected. Was the intention was to protect people and their freedoms. And so the glitch or the catch was that unless they were a criminal, and so the criminalization era happened in that time. So have you ever had somebody say something to you that, you know, they called you names? I mentioned bullying when I was in school, right? And you knew that wasn't who you were. And so in our case, in the space of being a Black American, our space was this, that you don't get to define me as something derogatory. We get defined who we are. Now, I get that the average white American may not connect with that. They may not even buy into it. I think you have to have an understanding of why that is. And parents will say to themselves, well, it's a connotation that's attached to the history. Every generation has to be able to find their way out of the negative thinking. And I believe that that's what has happened. Now, the question is asked me, would you say it? And my question to you is, would you say it?
Yeah.
Right? Like, don't put the added pressure on me, whether I do or don't. just think about how you feel about it and go with that. Because we do have the freedom of speech. There is, in my mind, understanding it. And I would just say to people, because it's hard for people of white American people, right? Specifically, to not, they have real massive internal conflict around why do they say that about themselves and we can't say it, you know, and not be the offender. It's like a cultural thing that people have made a decision to say, this is a part of my culture and I protect it. Remembering that the words are two different words, spelling not the same and meaning not the same.
Regina, I think also what Nikki said, are you just more aware now? Yeah, your RAS is activated, right? And most of us have. To me, I can literally visualize it as all my nerves are exposed right now, way more than they have been. So I'm picking up on stuff that I was somewhat oblivious to for a long time, just getting through. And that could be it. It's just right there.
Yeah, it's so
Regina,
funny.
thank you. Will you just please run for president?
That's a tall order, right?
I'm right there. I'm right there behind you. You got me.
Not imagine. I do believe though that God has something special for me. I do. I don't know, Nikki, if in fact it's the presidency.
We can all wish, right?
You know, nah, I don't. Yeah, we can do whatever you like, Nikki. That's one of my favorite songs too. So we can do whatever you like. Any other question?
We can close it out with a question. I always want to be really respectful of everybody's time because this is typically an
Yeah,
hour.
we went from 11 to 12. Okay, forgive me.
No, not. I think we could all
sit.
sit here all day. Again, they all want you back. So we will talk offline and figure out what that can look like. Anytime I can be exposed to your energy, I will take that total advantage of that. So any other final questions?
So I don't have a question. I just have a comment. This has been so powerful. Your words are like, they just hit you. I've been crying the whole time. So I hope you come back and I am going to look into you so I can follow you. So thank you for being that person.
Well, I thank you. And if you choose to follow me, you better come over here because I'm not nearly as present on social media. I'm a very personable person. I like to have that interaction. And maybe I should do more good on that. I just know that there's more bad there as well. And so where I sense my energy is important to me. What you will see though is positive. So if you're looking for just a little nugget, go back like 2 months ago and you'll find something that's on there for me.
All right. Well, thank you, Regina.
My pleasure.
Sorry.
Yep. If you have any questions, is it okay that I share my contact information?
Oh, please, absolutely.
So this is for you in so many reasons, right? Because I think that until we start having more questions, somebody said earlier that, you know, now a different religious group is saying, hey, can we be open to having conversations about me in our group? Can we have more conversations about equity and equality in our race? I think it will require all of us being open to seeing all of us from a different perspective. There may be some notions that I have about you that is just untrue. And the only way I'll know it is that we have these open conversations, you know? And I think that it does have to be a safe space. Will it be comfortable? No. Will you get angry? Yes. Will I get angry? Mm-hmm. And I think the forgiveness is the healing power. I truly believe that love is the healer of all things. And so you don't love someone generally outside of me. Now, I can do it for no reason. I can love someone for absolutely no reason. And yet, until you really know who the person is, then you may have a different perspective. We can't go out and listen to a billion people and know them. We can't put a billion people in the same category and say they're all the same. So we have to be reminded of that. So I say all that to say, my number is 404 931
I'm going to put it in the chat box.
5597.
So can you do it again, Regina? Because I'm going to type it.
404 931 5597.
Evie had already put it in there. Thank you, Evie.
Yeah. And so here's the thing. If you email me, you may get it. Yeah. Okay. I'm giving you the best way to communicate with me. That's by phone or text. I'm always there.
Awesome. Well, I just adore you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And seriously, my phone is blowing up saying, how can we get her more often? So we will be talking.
Absolutely.
And I just so appreciate the energy and light that you bring into my life and the education. And I can't wait to see you in person again.
I am most grateful for you and helping me identify my grieving stages. I will never, ever, ever forget that moment. Thank you.
I won't forget it either, honey. Love you lots. Big hugs.
Right back at
Stay
you.
safe.
You got it.
And keep on inspiring.
I'll do it.
All
Take
right.
care, everyone.